So today's episode is going to be a bit different because typically we talk about everyday tensions and questions and struggles that we all have and how to navigate all that through God's lens. Well, today we felt particularly called and just God has really laid this on my heart specifically to use and steward the platform that we have, as well as the opportunity we really have and the relationships we also that he's given us, to really talk about this very tragic event that happened recently in Maui, with the wildfires and everything going on. Because we know that, personally for us, we have been going through, different cycles of emotions and praying, but also grieving, but also wondering how can we best help. And so we really just want to use this opportunity to dive in deeper and give a human perspective to what a lot of people see as a news story or a headline. We want to help humanize it and make it real for a lot of people who might not know exactly what it is like being there right now or having gone through that tragedy. And so, yeah, again, this is not typically what we do, and we don't do this for every current event or tragedy that happens in the world. But God's just really been highlighting the islands to us this past year, especially, and He's worked really powerfully through these communities that we've gotten to be connected with there. So we just felt it was the right thing to do, and also something that if we didn't do, it would be disobedience. So we just want to obey, and we also acknowledge it might not seem very relevant to what would most benefit you as the audience, but we honestly feel like sometimes we just have to talk about things that are not necessarily for our direct benefit or obvious benefit. We actually have to talk about things that are harder, that are more ambiguous, that are still in progress, and just invite God into the process as well. So we hope this is enlightening, eye-opening for you, as well as, just blesses you with the stories and testimonies that our friends Jared and Candace will share. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. We're so glad you guys are here with us today because we have two very special guests, and it's kind of interesting how we met. We actually, back in January, Alex and I were...
2023.
Yeah, 2023 of this year. Alex and I actually went to Maui because we had planned that trip far in advance. We love Maui, we love Hawaii and the islands, and we usually do like an annual prayer and planning, just vision casting for the year. I'll spare everyone the details, but basically God just had us stumble into this amazing worship gathering hosted by the movement on Maui, which is like a collective of house churches there. And Jared and Candace is here with us today. They pastor one of those house churches, and they actually even invited us, and we got to spend time with them. And even though we've only met them like those couple times, it's just amazing how God can connect people, like a soul connection, despite not having the frequency of meeting. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today to just talk about this topic with us.
Yeah, we're so excited to be part of your podcast. So thanks. Thanks for the invite.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Maybe before we begin, if you guys could give like a really quick intro, high level overview of, where you're from and maybe how did you meet, and anything else you would like to share.
Ladies first.
Okay. So I'm originally not from Hawaii. I'm from Mississippi in the South, U.S., and I moved here about 5 years ago with my girls, and we met Jared at a church that we started attending after moving here. We met in, what year was it? 2019?
2019.
2019, and then we got married in 2020 in the middle of COVID. Interesting. We just had a little small wedding, but we knew pretty much from the beginning that that God had put us together, and that we were supposed to be together, and so it kind of was love at second sight, not first sight, but second sight.
My name is Jared, and I've been
living on the island of Maui. I've been born and raised here all of my life, and it's just been a special place to call home. And I just when I had left the island to go to college, I really appreciated the value of my my island home. And the different island Hawaiian islands are so different in each way. And so when you hear the term, the phrase Maui no Ko'oi, which means Maui is the best, I really took that to heart after I left the island. And so anyways, when I came back from college, I became a Christian. I was really seeking the Lord. Um, and then I got on the worship team. And uh, the day I met, the day Candace finally saw me for the second time,
The second.
I was singing a solo, and I'm singing a Hawaiian Christian song. And yeah, and it was just like God had spoke to her and said, "That's your husband." And little did I know, she also had like some notes in her journal of like exactly the type of husband she wants to look for while on the island. And I guess I fit the
Wow.
I fit the uh I had really prayed to God, like, God, if she is the one, show me a sign. And at the time, Candace was behind me, and I turned around, and there was this rainbow that pointed right on top of her. And so we all know that the rainbow is a sign of God's promises. And so I took that as my sign, and I was like, and I've been I've been with her since then. So
If you guys
yeah.
were wondering what's at the end of the rainbow, it's me.
The real pot of gold, the real treasure.
Hey, that's a good one.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing. I feel like we might need to do a separate episode about love and how did you know and all those things.
Oh,
But I just wanted to add for our listeners' context, another reason why we wanted Jared and Candace on this podcast was because their hearts are so genuine. And you'll see as we continue talking, they love God and love others. And it's so palpable. And so they have a lot of God stories. If you ever are interested, I'm sure you can reach out to them on social media to find out more. But yeah, for today, we really wanted to dive into, the current events and what's been happening on Maui. And again, just thank you for being willing to share and dive into this. We were prefacing earlier that, we're not going to claim like this is the expert perspective or advice or anything like that. But our goal for this episode really is for those listening or watching to kind of put faces to a news headline. It's really easy for us, even as Christians, to see what's on the news or social media and kind of like numb our hearts. And so we felt like the Lord has put Hawaii on our hearts so much in this season. And we just felt this responsibility almost to use our platform and steward it.
Yeah, the Maui fires. It's definitely all over the news, and you see all these headlines, and like this is one of the most devastating fires in U.S. history. But we're here to humanize the experience and put faces to names, or faces and names to just the devastation that happened. So, Jared, Candace, can you tell us about your own personal experience of the Maui fires as it was unfolding? Where were you? What was going through your heads?
On that day, I think it was August 8th, right? And it was my mom's birthday, actually. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
Oh, geez.
I went to work and had told my mom, like, hey, me and Candace want to take you out to dinner. And so, there was news that a hurricane or there's going to be hurricane force winds during that day as well. But that didn't really kind of like bother me because we've had I've experienced hurricane winds before, and they're not nearly as bad as like just a random trade wind gust or Kona storm. So it really didn't bother me. But I went to work that day, and it was really windy. It was like the wind was blowing through the house that we were working in, and I'm a carpenter by trade, and so there was sawdust going all over in my eyes, and stuff falling over, and so I was just thinking, oh man, this is crazy. And I think at the time Candace was
We can just
home. Yeah, and so I was just texting Candace back and forth like, hey, like I think this is what where we're gonna go to celebrate my mom's birthday, and so I remember getting off of work and just thinking, man, the drive is gonna be crazy windy, and so I'm just hoping that my truck doesn't like fly off of the highway. And so I remember like getting home, and I think that was when I had heard news of fires. I think it started up in Olinda, which is in upcountry Maui. There was one, yeah, in
there were three
Olinda.
separate fires.
Yeah. You want to jump in? Yeah, because I think there's fires as I was working as well, but
I think
I can't remember.
I was Jared's news source, by the way.
Yeah,
So.
she's always my news source.
But no, well, I was at home all day that day, and so yeah, they had been predicting like the hurricane force winds, but strangely enough, like here in Kahului, where we live, there was hardly any wind. And so I had actually asked Jared, I was like, what are they talking about? The wind? There's no wind. And but I didn't know it was actually very windy on the Lahaina side, and also upcountry on the Kula Makawao side. And anyway, I was just following the news all day, and it started earlier that morning. There was a fire in Olinda, which is upcountry, like Makawao area. And that was spreading pretty quickly due to the winds. And then there had also been a fire that had started in Lahaina that morning, but the firefighters said they had it 100% contained pretty soon after. But because they didn't have any power or electricity over there at that point because of the winds, and they had lost cell phone service over there as well, and so a lot of the businesses had already shut down because of that, and then the kids had been let out of school over on that side, on the west side. And so all day I was just following. There's like pop up little flare ups of fires all day long. It was just over and over and over. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe there's so many fires popping up. And the winds was just really crazy in those two areas. And later that evening, I guess at this point, I think Lahaina had already pretty much burned down, but they were kind of late on announcing any of the anything happening really over there. They would just say we're evacuating this community or that community, but it wasn't until later that evening that we learned that Lahaina Front Street, which is right on the water there, had been burned completely down. And I don't know, we were just kind of in shock. Just because, I mean, I've only lived here like 5 years, but, Jared's lived here his whole life. And he said it kind of felt like he lost a loved one almost. It's such a connection to that town. But even for me, it was just hard. We have so many memories of Lahaina, and
Yeah.
it was one of our favorite places on the island. Like, we wanted to move there eventually, and just to know like all that is gone is just devastating.
Mm-hmm.
But and then there was another fire that also started later that evening, before, right as the sun went down. It was in the Kula area, and that one spread very fast to Kihei, which is on the south side. Parts of Kihei had also had to be evacuated. It was like the whole, same night. It was like the whole island was on fire.
Yeah.
Wow.
It seemed like at one point. It's a lot of smoke, and we have a pretty good vantage point from our house to see on to the Kula side of the island, and it was just smoke everywhere. It was hard to even see through to see the other mountain because there was so much smoke and flames.
Wow.
Yeah, I think like as I was ending my day at work, I had gotten a text from Candace saying that Front Street is on fire. And then shortly after, I heard that this apartment was on fire. And then another building was on fire. And I was just thinking, what the heck is going on?
Mm.
Like, don't tell me that the entire area is going to get on fire. And so that's what I was thinking on my way back home, on top of the winds and trying not to, get my truck blown over. And so I get home, and Candace is telling me that like pretty much Front Street is all gone, and it well, I wouldn't say gone, but it's on fire. And it was just a shock, and just to think that no way, like this isn't happening. Like, is this for real, God? Like, why is this
Mm.
happening? And then, you know, when the sun had gone down, Candace was mentioning that there was another fire that had started up in Kula area that was heading to Kihei. There was also like on social media and Facebook that were saying that there was a fire started in Kahului, like not that far away from where we live. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, like I hope that Kahului doesn't get
Wow.
burned down. And the wind,
Mm.
is coming towards us, and the fire is in that direction, and it could potentially come up towards us. And so I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I hope that we don't get affected too. But shortly
That one,
after,
they
yeah,
put it out
they
really
put
quick.
that out.
Oh wow.
Wow.
It was just it just made me think, like, man, was this like planned? Was this like started, like, who's starting these fires? All these thoughts running in my head, like, no way this is uh natural. And that's what I was thinking anyway. And so
Well, there is a history of people, when the conditions are right, of people setting fires here.
right,
So that's what he's thinking
some
is actually not like a
pyromaniacs.
conspiracy or
Yeah.
anything. Like it's a very
Yeah, it's a
logical
possibility.
It's
possibility.
always whenever there's like strong winds, there I don't know, like some
Tends to be a lot
crazy
of fires.
person just tends to want to light a fire and
Or pop fireworks
or pop fireworks. Yeah, it was
that
crazy.
cause them.
I think I remember, like, we had to cancel, obviously, with my mom because of the fires, and I was sad because, like, I wanted to celebrate, but we had to. So we were debating, like, oh, what are we gonna eat for dinner? And it's like we don't have any food made. So we went out to go get some food, and like some people in the Kahului area were popping fireworks, and I was just thinking, what the
Whoa.
heck is wrong
Right
with
now?
these people? Like, don't they know that there's a fire in Lahaina? Don't they know that there's a fire that's going on, and then they want to pop fireworks and close to the dried up sugarcane fields? It was just unbelievable, and it was really like aggravating that, and it was just very heavy. And even during that evening, Candace could hardly sleep because she was just thinking, oh my gosh, like all of the people that are in there. And we were just hoping that people got out alive. And
Yeah, like he was saying, we had went out to eat, and when we went out, there was people everywhere that had escaped from Lahaina side. They had all evacuated, whoever could. A lot of people got trapped over there because there's only one way in, one way out. Well, there's a second way, but it's the back way, and it's very dangerous if you don't know how to navigate the road, that kind of road. So technically, there's only one way in and one way out. And so a lot of people got trapped. Some were able to evacuate into Kahului area. And also Kula and Kihei residents were evacuating to Kahului. And so there's thousands of people displaced for the night, and they were just in their cars with everything they could fit in there or had time to get, their kids and their pets in all these parking lots, like the Safeway parking lot, the Target, Walmart parking lot. All of them were just packed full of people with nowhere to go. Plus the shelters that were opened up had a lot of people, and it was just so wild to see that amount of people displaced from that.
Yeah, in such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
it was just
I think
wild.
I think they said once the fire picked up again in Lahaina, it was only about 2 hours that it had burned everything down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
wow.
fast.
I just got chills even thinking about that because, yeah, you would think or 2 hours earlier everything's normal, and then 2 hours later it's like totally different. It just would have felt very surreal, I can imagine. And yeah, thank you for just sharing more of that and like how you were feeling. And I'm curious, like how have you guys been just processing everything? Because there's a lot, I'm sure it's a roller coaster of emotions, of just all the fear that you experience, the shock, but also I know, guys are parents and trying to, be hopeful and give hope at the same time. So how have you guys, or what's helped you kind of process everything, or maybe you still are, and what does that look like?
For both of us, we were just like, we got to do something. Like, we got to get out there and we got to help some people. And we didn't really know immediately like what that looked like as it was happening. Like the next day, we were able to, or Jared was able to go and volunteer at one of the local churches that had opened up as a shelter.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he was able to do that. And then him and our girls were able to go volunteer as well. Again, we just cleaned out like our closets and like everything that we had that would be useful at the shelters, and just donated what we could. And then, but it just really was a feeling like you have to do something and you don't know what to do and or what you can do. And then so many people were still trapped over there, and they had the road closed. You couldn't go in or out of Lahaina. So those people, you couldn't really be helped except from within. It just felt like we weren't doing enough. And just was definitely, we're in prayer for everyone that was going through the fires, for our island. Like definitely a lot of tears. And then as I personally met people that had lost everything, just giving hugs, I mean, it's such a small thing, but just there's nothing, there's no words really right now for
Yeah,
me.
I think for me, like I had to go to work the next day, and
Oh wow, that must be hard.
it was hard. It was on the opposite side of the island, the south side, and we were relatively free from the fires, except for the lingering danger of the Kula fire that was traveling towards the south side. But besides that, going to work and just feeling the heaviness of this, of what just happened the day before, and then hearing everything, um, finally catch up on the news, and just seeing pictures of the aerial pictures of Lahaina town just looking like a war zone, and the before and afters of what it was then and what it is now, where it's just a pile of ash and just there's houses burned down. Um, and then to hear that that banyan tree that has been there for a very long time, to hear that it was burned down, was just sad. But that's very minute compared to the amount of lives that were lost and are still unaccounted for. And it was just very like sickening in my stomach. Like, man, like what Candace was saying, we need to do, like, I wanted to do something other than work, but I know that being a husband, like I also have to, I can't like not afford to work because housing costs is so expensive here. Thankfully, I live with my parents. We live with my parents, and it's not as expensive, but the food is expensive. Everything is expensive, and so I couldn't afford to not go. But just the weight really like affected not only me but my coworkers. We all felt the same. Like, man, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be chopping wood. We don't want to be putting tile in this bathroom. We don't want to be doing that. Like, we would rather be going out to Lahaina. But then also there was the reality that sank in. Like, okay, if I'm thinking this way and everybody else is thinking this way, and there's really only one way in, how, like, that's going to cause so much congestion and even more problems than um, what the Lahaina people already need. And but
They weren't even allowing anyone in.
yeah, they weren't
So-
allowing anyone in, and which made me even more mad. It's like, why isn't the county doing it? Why isn't the
Right.
government doing it?
Yeah.
They were just like barricading people. They were waiting for who knows what. And
a lot
so
of legal technicalities and red tape that
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of kept assistance from being available to
Right.
the people trapped over there. That is one thing, going back to what we were talking about earlier with community, like as a whole, like Maui has just like, and the other islands too has really like pulled together to take care of those that are in Lahaina. When the roads were closed and they weren't allowing anyone in or out, people were missing and trapped and everything. The fires were still burning. And there were people going by boat to around the road, like going by boat, loading up supplies and going and dropping it off for the people that were trapped over there. And if anybody needed to get out, they were bringing people back to get them out of Lahaina. That was the community, not the government assistance, for days.
I think even the Coast Guard too was going up.
Yeah, the Coast Guard had rescued. Well, a lot of people got trapped on Front Street, and they had to, in their vehicles while they were trying to get through traffic to get out of town. And they had to leave their cars and jump into the ocean just to survive.
Wow.
And some of them waited in the water for 12 hours to be rescued. And
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of sorry to cut you off, but one of the snorkel tour boats, Trilogy is which company that was, that they were rescuing some of those people that had abandoned their vehicle. They had started rescuing some of those people, and they were one of the first ones that was like trying to take supplies to people and get people out of there that needed to leave.
Yeah, it was great to know that even though it felt like we were kind of helpless, we wanted to be there and to I don't know, to help out in any way that we could have. It was great to know that there was a lot of people who thought the same and they took action. You know, they went on boats, they and just brought supplies because the people needed it, and that's just kind of how our community is. And so that sat well, at least for me, to know that, okay, there's people that are going out and being boots on the ground, like, thank God for these people. But during the days afterwards, it's like, I'm still trying to cope. Like, man, I think all of us too are and when I say all of us, I mean like the Maui community as a whole, especially the ones that are in this area, in the central area, Kahului area, and the ones that are not in the Lahaina area. We all feel like we have to do something, but there's like a guilt or shame because we can't. There's like a reality where a limitation, I guess, where we're able to act. But Candace had mentioned earlier that I was able to go to the local church, and it's the small things too. God uses the small things, and so people were there, and the people that were in the shelter, they were just so grateful that there was a shelter where there was food and people actually caring for people. And so there was that. And then, tons of people dropping off donations, doing whatever they could. And so that's kind of how the process of how things went. But yet, even till now, there's still like this heaviness of, I need to do something. Like, I need to go over there and or just do something for someone, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in wanting to do something for yourself, right? And so it's been a little easier now, but the desire to go out and help is still there.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that example of community. I only see like headlines and pictures on social media, but it's really awesome to, as you were explaining it, I'm just like seeing people like hug each other and rescue people, and it's actually quite beautiful. I want to transition a bit into the current state of things, just for you to personally, what is Maui like now overall? I imagine there's not that many tourists, but like, what's the ambiance of it? Even like, how is Maui affected economically, or just like give us a 30,000 foot view of what it's like at Maui now.
Maui right now is definitely the heaviness has lifted up a little, at least from what I see, and there's less tourists, but majority of the tourists that are still on island are on the south side, and so there's lots of business still there.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, but do you have anything?
Yeah. So, well, originally, like in the middle of everything, the governor had said all the tourists need to leave Maui originally, and then I think they thought that through a little bit, more. I was like, yeah, that's actually not such a good idea. So they kind of retracted it and was like, Maui's not closed, just Lahaina is closed. And but because of that initial Maui is closed, and other people on their social medias like also saying Maui is closed. Um, I know, I'm not gonna lie, I had shared that too, because when it was like such a fresh, like the next day, um, it's like, yeah, like this is this is not just like a couple of homes. This is like an entire town wiped out, and like people are still missing, and it just felt kind of wrong to think of people vacationing here
Mm.
in almost like what looked like a war zone, you know. But anyway, so but now it's kind of transitioned to Maui's open, just Lahaina's closed. But that initial request, all the tourists pretty much left. So you can, as you're going to the airport, there's all of these fields out there, and they're just full of rental cars. It's like a sea of rental
Mm.
cars that people canceled their reservations. A lot of people just canceled altogether. Some people just changed their vacation from Lahaina side to uh, the Kihei and Wailea, or to Paia on the North Shore. And but there's definitely been, even though business is kind of as usual in Kihei and Wailea, there still is a big difference in the amount of people that are on the island. And a lot of people are, I think, actually are hurting in their businesses
Yeah.
because of a lack of tourists right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, initially, we were saying Maui is closed. I think because of the fresh wound, but
Right.
now I've been hearing like friends of mine who are workers, and they've been telling me that they've been laid off because there's a lack of tourists, and so we have transitioned into a Maui is open, Lahaina is closed kind of deal. But I think just um, with the tourists that are here now, um, some of them had reservations in Lahaina for things, and I've been hearing stories that they're complaining of, oh, because of the fires, my reservation was canceled, and it's like at this point, it's like does that really matter? Um, but anyways, the what was I going with this? Um, I think I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. We were just asking how things were, but yeah, it sounds like, I mean, I think this just confirms like what I had been perceiving from the mainland. Was it seems like everyone's just trying to figure it out as we go, right? Like no one really knows the plan, the solution. The government doesn't know, community leaders don't know. The community looks like it's doing its best to try to figure it out and rally people, but there's still all these like logistics of things to figure out. And
Yeah.
yeah, even from you guys like sharing how you feel like we got to do something, like there has to be stuff we can help with, but then feeling powerless when there's all this red tape. We kind of felt like a bit of that as well, even from all over the world, of like we're not there physically, but like how can we help, who can we donate to, all these questions. And I think the reality is it just sounds like no one single person knows the answer. Like it's everybody just doing their best. And so I wanted to ask, when we zoom out, obviously, like for us, for like we're believers, and so we know that even though man doesn't know what's going on, like God has a bigger picture. But it can also be hard. I'm just thinking of so many people in tragic situations, to be like trying to seek God in the darkness, but then also feeling like the darkness is so heavy and there's so many questions and feeling powerless. So anyway, just kind of curious, like for you guys, how have you kind of been experiencing God like speaking to you or highlighting things to you in in the season of just all these questions?
Well, I know there's actually been quite a few prophecies for Maui that revival is going to come here. And so I feel like this could very well be the thing that brings that,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, a lot of people right now are just trying to, like, they're in survival mode. But, it's almost, or it is 2 weeks, I guess, today. But, people are going to start the grieving process. They already are. But, and I just really feel like there's going to be a large amount of people starting to turn back to God, maybe as unfortunate as this event was, that out of it, people realize like, we need God, and more than ever. And like, so that's my prayer, is that people will just realize that they're going to need him to get through this time.
Yeah, I actually do remember when we visited in January. That was like the message, right? At the
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
gathering
was.
right.
was, yeah. And my
Yeah,
heart, I don't know why I was describing this to my friend in Kona. I was like, my heart just leapt. I was like so excited, like revival's coming,
yeah,
everybody's sensing it. And I forgot if I even shared with you guys, but we had visited like another church that God led us to during that same trip, and that same church said the exact same thing. And I was like, wow, I feel like this is definitely like a broader, you know, move of God. Earlier, actually, when Jared, you were sharing how you had to go to work the next day, I just thought of like how that's probably how the disciples also felt after Jesus was crucified, of like losing all hope and like what do we
Yeah,
do now with our lives? But
yeah.
there, and then it says they returned to go fishing, but like they're probably like, what are we doing? Like this, like there's just so many question marks, right? And just the feeling of hopelessness and heaviness, and but also trying to make a living still to survive. And so part of me, like what you just shared, Candace, really aligned with kind of that picture of, oh, I think this can also be a almost like a resurrection opportunity of new life and new hope, brought after the darkness and the hopelessness, you know.
I was just thinking, with devastation, there's always a wonder afterwards. Like people are wondering why did this happen? How did this happen? And so there's tons of people who are seeking answers and who are questioning a lot of things. And to hear the word that was prophesied back in January, that revival is stirring, and even before that, um, you know, people who are friends who are close of ours saying, "I just got a word that something big is going to happen in Maui," and it's
Mm.
just like, "Whoa, okay, God, I want to be a part of that." Um, but little did we know, right? Little did we know what exactly was going to happen. But I think I know that with devastation, there's always going to come this wondering period. Why God? And so people are going to be asking, and I feel like this is truly the time where the believers, the Christians, the people like you and I, um, are going to go out into the fields and reap a harvest, not for our own selves, but for the glory of God. And it sounds kind of wrong, but like this is the perfect time to 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 God, and we're going to be seeking people who have just lost everything, and so they don't know. Uh, I mean, I can only imagine how they must feel to lose what they've lost, but um, I know that it's such a cliche to say, but God, can provide them everything, and it's up to us to steward that. And in the position that we're in now, I feel excited, to go out and do the work. And there's going to be people who are angry, yes, people who may be angry at God for sure, like, this is God's fault or whatever. And you know what, their hearts are broken, and that's okay. We're not called to correct or to judge at this time. We're called right now to love our neighbor. And I feel like that's what the whole community has been doing, is loving on the people in Lahaina. And also, we don't want to forget about the people in Kula, because they lost their homes too. And so there's so much people who are directly or indirectly affected, that they're going to be asking questions. And so this is the perfect time for us to bring the gospel to those people.
Yeah, I love that. Such a good perspective.
Well, Jared, Candace, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your hearts. And just thank you for the human side of this situation, and sharing your experience. For people who want to help out, what's one practical step people can take to help those affected by the fires?
Yeah, you can go to wearethemovement.com, and the Maui movement has been collecting donations, monetary donations, for the people who are affected, directly affected by the Maui fires, and that's including Lahaina and people in Kula, and it's going directly to them. Our tech people have been busy with collecting verified GoFundMe links. There's tons of GoFundMe links on social media, especially that popped up during that first week. Like, but you can't really tell if it's
who's legitimate and who's not.
Yeah, and so we've verified them, and so scroll down to the Maui fire relief, and they could donate that as well. Yeah,
I think monetary donations are what's really needed now, because there's actually a surplus of donations at this point, where they have too much things.
Like supplies.
Yeah, too many supplies. And so monetary, something that can go directly to the families, to help them, like get back on their feet, for maybe rent or furnishing, a house, or, whatever they need, clothing, they can get it that way. I know you said one thing, but I just want to add one more thing that would also help Maui as a whole, is if we could, if anyone who wants to help Maui or has been to Maui and just loves it here, and has a connection to the island, to shop locally. Even you don't have to be here to help the economy here right now. So just, you can go, maybe you remember a favorite shop that you visited that was owned by a local family. They really, it's the local businesses that really need support right now. So go stock up on some of your favorite things from those places. Yeah.
Wow, that's such a great idea. I actually haven't seen that. There's like so many ways to help, but I haven't seen that idea yet. And that's such a great, like, we should totally do that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And just to elaborate a little bit more for listeners, because I think a lot of people, or at least what I was feeling in my wrestling, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like so many things to donate to. Like, which one do I pick? Which family do I donate to? And it can get easy in any situation to feel almost paralyzed by like so many options that you kind of procrastinate. You're like, oh, I'll do like hours of research later to figure it out. But I just want to share, like, with anyone who might be struggling with that, like, don't let that stop you from action, because the best thing you can do is do something. It's better to do something imperfectly, quote unquote, than do nothing at all. And that's what I felt the Lord like really encouraged me in, is, just do what you can to the best of your knowledge and trust God with the fruit of it. You don't even need to, I think our society has this concept of like, I need to make sure my money is going like exactly where I want it to. But it's like part of stewardship is letting that go to trust that God sees your heart. God knows, your intentions, and the impact of where your money or donations or purchases all go will reap like fruit that you might probably never see on this side of eternity. And same with prayers, right? Like I think oftentimes we're like, oh, how come God isn't like answering my prayers like exactly in this way? But God sees all of it. And so, yeah, if you guys, those listening and watching, just want to pray, for the people in Maui, and just like you guys said, like there's so much opportunity now for people to be asking the big questions like, who is God? And, how do I find hope? How do I find security in things that like can't be taken away like this? I think that there's a huge need for that as well. And we'll also include all the links, the movement link, as well as some local business links in our description for everybody to check out. So yeah, thank you guys so much again. If there's any questions people have, or they want to get connected with your house church or the movement, how can they find that?
You can connect with us at our Instagram, the Well Maui, and yeah, you can find us on there. You could also direct message us. You can find me under my. You could just put Jared Madamba and you'll find me, or my wife. But yeah,
At Coco's for Candy.
Coco's. Yeah, I don't know. She always changes her.
I know, I do.
Her handle, so it's like I don't know.
What is it now? Flavor of the week.
Yes.
Yeah, if there's anyone who has questions or even just wants to talk, we're here. And I do want to add that that we all feel like we have to race and we have to sprint, but this is going to be a marathon kind of deal. And so we all have to just kind of, now that we're 2 weeks out, we just have to kind of remember to slow down, and just know and trust God.
Thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you both here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We know that it was different than what we typically do, but again, we just hope that it really opens your eyes and kind of just humanizes, what can often come off as just a news headline or a story we see on social media. And it's easy for us as human beings as a coping mechanism or self-protective method of just numbing ourselves and removing ourselves and being like, we have enough problems to care about in our own lives. Like, why should I add another thing on my plate? And again, we're not trying to guilt trip anybody or be like, you need to, save Maui or you need to like save the world or anything. But we just hope, if anything, this gives you guys kind of a glimpse into also whatever God has given you. It might not be a podcast necessarily, but it might be financial resources, or it might just be some time that you can spend to, write encouragement notes or pray or, reach out to people, and whatever it looks like. There's so many different ways to really be involved and not just this what's happening in Maui, but just other communities in the world too. And just like I mentioned and we talked about in the podcast episode, it's easy to be paralyzed by overwhelm and be like, there's just too many options. I don't know what to do, and just be stuck. But that's actually the enemy's tactic too, of like preventing us from doing anything at all with this indecision. There's no one right, perfect way to do things. God just wants our hearts. He just wants our obedience. So the next time, you feel a tug to use what God's given you to steward, to help those in need that he's highlighted and really like put a burning in your heart for, just do it. Like, that's honestly the takeaway from this episode is, nobody's actions are perfect. Nobody knows the real solution to solving all the world's problems, and nobody can do that. Jesus is the only answer. He's the savior of the world. We are not the saviors, but our role is just simply to obey whatever God is tugging at our hearts to do in obedience. So yeah, we just hope that, this also will remind you to kind of take a step back from your own life. Like I'm preaching to myself too. It's easy to get sucked into our first world problem wormhole of like all my issues and stuff, which are totally all valid. But it's also really important for us to pay attention to what God is highlighting to us outside of our own bubbles or even local communities, and really putting on our hearts to help those in need outside. And again, like, don't feel pressure or guilt of like, I need to help everybody, but it's just whoever God is highlighting to you, whatever people group, community, place that God has particularly put on your heart. It's different for everyone, but just don't ignore it, because it really is something that we've all been created for, is to come together and use what we have and be faithful with it to bless others. And if you're enjoying this podcast and you've been helped by it or blessed by it, we just ask one favor, is to subscribe. If you haven't already, please subscribe on any platform that you watch or listen to. You can also leave a rating and review if you would like. That really, really helps us to expand our reach so that more people can be empowered to live out their faith in their everyday life. So yeah, we can't wait to see you again next week as we continue to unpack these questions and tensions to live God's way.